aging faster than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea.
Hi, Tea Mystique reminds you that no experience is too big or too small to teach us something about ourselves.
Join us for a cup of tea as we steep into adulting, womanhood, independence, and more.
Break it down, girl. Sing for our special guest. Sing to me, Paolo.
Ooh.
Sing to me, Paolo.
How was your class,
Oh my
Cami?
God.
Everything went well?
Yeah, it went well. It's already third trimester, so there's not much for me to do besides just check their progress and their projects, how they're doing.
You know,
And yeah.
it's so funny because I feel like her and I are always joking around about the metric system and then the differences between the US. And so I hear her say trimester, and the only thing that pops in my head is, are you pregnant?
Yeah.
Same here.
I thought of the
Definitely
same thing, girl.
thought for like 2 seconds in my brain about that too.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Childbirth?
Technically, she has her babies.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I guess it's not a trimester now that you mention it, because it's not 3 months. It's just the semester is divided into 3.
That's
I don't
interesting.
know. The third part
Yeah.
of the
Well,
semester, I
of
guess.
the semester.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess for them, it would be trimester. Ours
Yeah.
is like in halves.
Food for thought.
Ours is
Because a full academic year is like four
quarters.
But I remember
it's-
getting 4 report cards.
You're right.
Yeah.
They did kind of split our semesters in half.
yeah, it's 4 9 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
4 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Actually,
I don't
in
know.
most universities, it's like that too. It's just the institute where I work, they do it in 3 parts. I don't know why.
They're not official.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Mm,
So
fancy.
for those of you listening to us, I'm sure you hear or see, if you're watching us via video, a different voice today. Today's episode, we're gonna have a special guest, and I'll introduce her in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk about the tea that we're drinking today and send it over to Kat. And today we're drinking a pumpkin spice rooibos, right?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you guys today. And yes, today's pump. If you guys remember, actually, if you guys listened to the episode that was without me and was just Tess and Pam, what was that topic that
Ghost
day?
stories.
Ghost stories. That's right.
It was ghost
That's
stories.
right. They already had this tea. And one thing that they mentioned was that they really wanted me to have it. And so naturally today we thought no better episode than the second episode in our November holiday season series
Mhm.
to bring it back on out. So we have the pumpkin spice rooibos back with us again. Shout out Trader Joe's. This
You
tea
know,
does come
so
from
good.
them. Yeah. Not only is it super aromatic, but it's a rooibos tea with a bunch of different diuretic spices. So it's a great recovery tea. But I also think it's something that you can have in the morning as well. I think of it as more of a slow morning, right? And also a slow winding down. So it's a great opener or closer to your day. And the benefit of pumpkin, I just looked this up because I didn't know myself. I know that things that are orange and golden in hue are oftentimes linked to similar benefits. So pumpkins are super rich in potassium, which makes them be a great system to help lower your blood pressure. And they are also really good for eyesight as well. I didn't know that about pumpkin. I kind of just learned that today.
It's like a banana carrot combo.
Yeah, exactly. The similarities between all of our fruits and vegetables it's really cool that you can not only taste it, but you can also see it. Not necessarily cousins, but cousins in color. And yeah, so aside from that, Pam, Tess already talked about the benefits of the different spices, the cloves, the nutmeg, and the cinnamon that's inside. So let's just enjoy it today as we dive into our topic.
And Cami, what are you drinking? I know, unfortunately, we're virtual, so you can't have the same tea, but what are you having with us?
I'm drinking green tea with I guess it's called frutos rojos, so it's kind of infused with berries like red berries, strawberries, and raspberries and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like a Yes, cheers.
Yeah. Also
Cheers.
anti-inflammatory, those raspberries.
So if you couldn't hear from her Spanish, our special guest today is actually coming from Peru. So our guest today is one of my dear cousins, Camila Murayama. And I wanted to bring her on this episode today because, as you all know, this is the second episode in our sort of gratitude series, starting to cozy up into the holiday season. And so when we were talking about what kind of episode we wanted to have, my cousin had recently been awarded, and I'll let her speak more on this, but she was awarded, I guess, like a grant or money to be able to fund a special project of hers. And because her project is really special, it's based on someone that's super important to the both of us. I figured it would be really beautiful if we could invite her over in air quotes, and have her speak with us in an episode to talk more about it, and with that lens and perspective on gratitude and why we're grateful for it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my cousin Cami. Cami, before we start the episode, if you could kind of give us a little bit of a background of what that project is, that I've been referring to, what the award was, and just a brief little summary of your project.
Okay. So, my project is basically a movie, a film, about the Nikkei community in Peru, so the Japanese Peruvian community in Peru back in the 1940s. And it's based or inspired, not really based, it's more inspired on our grandmother's history, which is basically that when she was around maybe 9 years old, World War II started, and Peru, since Peru was well, it's still a third world country. Peru was aiming to have this good relationship, I guess, with first world countries like United States. And because the United States was in this war up against Japan, the Peruvian government of that time, they implemented a bunch of, I guess, new rules and stuff like that was very discriminatory against the Nikkei community back then. Like they closed their schools, the teachers got deported, a lot of businesses were just randomly closed just because they could, because why not? And there was just this overall sense of fear created in the society, that the Japanese community in Peru, that they were somehow like linked to the military in Japan, and they were trying to use Peru as like a strategic location for the war, and that for some reason the Japanese families in Peru had like weapons hidden in their households, which was ridiculous now that we think back. But that was the fear that it created, like that the war created. And well, the consequences was that our grandmother, because she was a kid, she wasn't able to go to school anymore. Her teachers got deported. And then because there was this generalized fear of getting deported to US internment camps, people started to hide. And our grandmother and her parents, they hid, and they had a friend who had a hotel, and this hotel had like a storage room, and they just lived for I don't know how long, probably like a year maybe, just hidden in that storage room. And her dad used to go to work at night so he wouldn't get caught randomly, because they had this thing called the blacklist, which it was technically supposed to be this list where they would put the names of the people that were supposed to be problematic or dangerous for the nation. But as it usually happens, it wasn't really, the list wasn't made, I guess, correctly. It wouldn't have been made correctly even if it had, but It was just a lot of political interests behind it, and it was just a lot
Yeah.
of police. I don't know if brutality is the word, but they just took advantage of the fact that they could just deport anyone if they wanted to. So there was a generalized fear of, if I look at this person the wrong way, I could get deported tomorrow. No. So that's what the story is about. The perspective that I wrote the story with was a little girl, which is based on Abue, because our grandmother, because she was a little girl back then. And what I really, really wanted to do with the story is, because the context was already so antagonistic in nature, like it put human and human against each other, I wanted to do the opposite. So because she was a kid and my character was a kid as well, I wanted her to meet this like anti-her, So it was like the complete opposite of her. She's a little girl, he's a little boy. She's Japanese descendant, he's like full Peruvian, and she has grown to believe, because of these things that she sees happening around her. She's grown to believe that the Peruvian people are evil, and that they're out for her and for her community, that they're just pure evil, they're monsters. And she gets put up against this little boy who, in his school, which was something that used to happen back in the day, he's grown to believe the complete opposite, that she is the evil one, that she is the spy, she's a spy that's been put here by the Japanese government, and that she has she probably has military training and has weapons hidden in her house.
At 9 years old.
At 9 years old, exactly. So it's like playing with the ridiculousness of it all. And how their, I guess, kid like point of view, how it can change, because kids are more flexible in that sense. So when they meet each other and they're put up against each other, at first they fight, but then within that fight they start to learn more about each other. They get stuck with each other for various reasons that I want to spoil, but they get stuck with each other and they have to start to deal with each other, and then they start to learn slowly but surely that, hey, maybe this other person isn't really like a monster. Maybe we're just all human and we're all the same underneath,
Yeah.
That's basically the story that the movie is about. And the grant that I won, I guess, though I
did.
still don't believe it. So the Peruvian government sets up like an amount of money each year that goes directly to the Ministry of Culture. And the Ministry of Culture, what they do is they create these different categories of grants that any Peruvian person can apply to. So for the cinematography field, I guess, they have, for example, the one that I applied to, which is the development fund, I guess you could call it that, which is basically for the development part of the film building project, which is screenwriting and filming a teaser so that you can go with that teaser to brands or companies, or maybe in my case probably the Japanese embassy in Peru, and ask for help, whether it be financial or co-production or stuff like that. So you build some sort of like portfolio for the project with that money, and you use that portfolio to look for funding for the actual project, because since it's a historical project, it's probably gonna be a bit more expensive than I would like to, but
That's amazing.
happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't realize that that our grandmother had lived, because like as she's been applying and working on this project, we've obviously been talking about it, and so I knew about some things here and there, but I didn't realize that she lived like that for a whole year. But I can't wait. I really hope that everything works out well and we can see it. I guess in our case would be streaming somewhere somehow.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll buy a ticket to Peru and go see it on the debut.
where there's a will, there's a way. Oh,
There
oh
is.
my gosh.
Wouldn't that be great?
The premiere of your dreams.
Yeah. That would be
Love that.
amazing.
Yeah. So I know that as we've had conversations, this project has kind of come from the stories of our grandmother, right? And from talking to her. And so this is also a more recent conversation that you've had with her. So we wanted to know, what triggered that conversation? Like how did that go? What triggered you to look back with Abue to discover this story that soon became, this huge passion project of yours?
I'll be honest, I have no idea. Because the thing is, our grandma, she loves to tell her stories, but I guess throughout my entire life, I always took them as like chisme, like just gossip, just family gossip. Like, oh, she's telling me about that time when this aunt did something, or when this cousin did something, and blah blah blah, and this happened, and blah blah. I didn't even pay much attention to that one story that now I remember, and I'm like, wow, because I remember her telling me something about her uncle getting shot on a ceiling. I guess there was like a civil war in Peru at that time, something like that. I don't really, I really don't know what happened or what we were talking about. But because it was during the pandemic and we were together like 24/7.
That was when you guys got stuck here, right?
Yeah, exactly. For a year. And it just for some reason resonated more. It just, I don't know what it was, but it just suddenly made me pay more attention to what she was actually saying. I think it might have something to do with her, because she jokes around a lot. So she was probably saying something about the money, because the United States government, they paid money to the people that actually got deported and went into those internment camps. I'm pretty sure they got, I don't know what it's called. I don't think it's settlement, but they got paid something to
Right.
compensate for that time. And I guess Abue was probably joking about how, oh, because our great grandfather, he hid, then he didn't get the money. So it was probably like a joke about, oh, we could have gotten the money, but since he hid and we didn't get the money.
Mhm.
It was that's probably how it started, but yeah, I'm not really sure why I paid more attention that day, but I'm grateful that I did, because it was quite a story.
Yeah. I feel like COVID, I mean, it was a global shutdown, but in a way, it forced a lot of people to kind of look at things, right? That maybe they overlooked before because you were kind of stuck. I mean, my cousin and my grandma, I remember that year very vividly. They come every single year in March because that's the summer break over there, right? In Peru. And so they usually come for the month of March. And it just so happened that that year COVID hit towards the end of it, and they could not go back even if they wanted to because of the lockdown, because we didn't know what was going on. And I know that you guys were really stuck at home, because some of us, like, I still worked and I worked remotely. And then eventually I had to actually go in when I switched jobs, but they didn't have anything to do. They were stuck here. So I'm sure being in that stillness and also feeling it together, right? Like, wow, the world is stopping. What can we do? They share stories.
Yeah. It's the best gift, I think, to and by the way, I just need to say, like, you guys should always say Abue. Just don't say grandma. Like, I feel like ever since hearing, Pam and Cami and even your sister say Abue, I love that nickname for our grandmother. My grandmother would make me say abuela fully. So I really wish I had Abue in my back pocket, because I think it's so
Aw.
like nice, and it's just such a beautiful sound.
It's so interesting to hear
Yeah.
all the different nicknames for grandmothers. My mom's nickname for her grandchild is Abu.
Oh,
Because that's
Abu.
all. I don't know if it's
It
from
just
like
gets
the
shorter
mom's side.
each
Yeah.
generation.
Next thing you know, Come here.
Be.
My American side, I call my grandmother Nana.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
I
see?
feel like there are other like Hispanic people that just whatever comes out of the baby's mouth, like that's it. That's your nickname.
Yeah.
They can't say anything else. and that's
Those are
what
the
you're-
roots.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know you said that you are grateful, right? To have had that conversation with her, but having experienced, this journey, because I believe this is also what you used for your master thesis, right? For
I
your
did.
master's. So since having looked back and having had that conversation with her and learning about her story, what do you feel that you are the most grateful for?
Well, I am extremely grateful because I was able to use this story in many ways, and um also I was able to use this story to progress, I guess, in I guess career wise a little, because I did use it for my master's and I'm using it as my first here in Spanish we call it opera prima, so it's like my first long feature, film project.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important part was in a personal note. I feel like it also changed the way I see Abue, because I've always loved her. Like I said that in the Instagram post where I shared that we got the grant and whatever. That she's my favorite person because she's very like particular. She's very unique. Um,
As a
but
lot of
obviously
grandmothers, I feel.
she's not. Yeah, but obviously she's not perfect.
Mhm.
Nobody is. And it would always frustrate me when we would have different points of view, because obviously given her age and where we come from, she has a more conservative way of viewing life, even sometimes. And I'm thankful this podcast is in English, so I'm pretty sure she'll never listen to it. She's a little racist.
No,
And
just, just a
and
little bit.
and
Yeah.
sexist,
It's
as
like
one
Avenue
is
Q.
when you're that age.
Yeah.
But it would just frustrate me so much when she was like that, when she would like say something um without even thinking, because when you get to a certain age, you stop having that filter. You just say whatever you want, because life is too short.
You've lived that
Why should
long.
you?
You deserve
Exactly.
it. As long as you're not
Exactly.
hurting anyone.
So but yeah, it would frustrate me. And I wouldn't understand it would frustrate me because I wouldn't understand why she would like to think that way, that this other person is less than or stupid just because they look different. And now, knowing the whole history and of what she went through, okay, it makes sense to me why she would have this, like, I guess, antagonistic point of view or perspective towards this type of people, this other different type of people. So of course, to me, she likes her own community better, and she feels a sense of safety, in her own community, and she doesn't really particularly like people outside of her community. Of course she feels that way because everything she went through, the discrimination, having to live hidden, she didn't tell me whether she was afraid or not, but at 9 years old, having to be hidden for such a long time, not knowing, you seeing your mom, not knowing what they're gonna eat, if they're gonna have enough, even her stories of trying to share the little food that her mom had or could buy, not knowing whether your dad was gonna come back from work or maybe he was gonna go missing, because they wouldn't really tell people when they got deported. Like, they would just grab them from the street and just put them in a truck and send them to the boat, whatever. So to me now it makes complete sense, like, why she would think the way she thinks, and it's been super helpful because I feel like I can understand her better, so I can have more patience towards her. I don't get angry at her anymore if she says something that maybe I don't like, particularly like. So I think, okay, I understand where she's coming from, why she feels that way. Even if I don't agree, she has every right to think that way, because quite frankly, after everything she went through, she can think whatever she wants at this point.
Yeah.
Of course, as long as it doesn't harm anybody,
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's also interesting because if you think about, our family is of Japanese descent, and Japan itself as a nation has been a very closed off nation, like for over 200 years, they were still living their lives as samurai while the rest of the world was developing with guns and everything. And it wasn't until they were forced to open their ports that then they finally, started recognizing the rest of the world. So then having to deal with discrimination and being scared and all of that. I remember, I want to say it was during COVID where you actually came up to me and you were really frustrated about something she said, and I had to remind you that, right, of like, I mean, I didn't know her backstory, but I remembered reminding you like, oh, well, she's old, like she grew up in a different world, she grew up with different values, different traditions. She's at an age where it's too much to ask of her to even, I mean, she could consider it, but to assume that she could change, is a lot. So I really appreciate it as well that you heard this story and can almost speak for her, and hopefully so that the rest of the family also understands her a little bit better, right? Because the elderly, they deserve their spot, but sometimes they can be frustrating, and a lot of that frustration does come from that, right? Like not understanding, and I also acknowledge that our uncles, our uncle and aunts, like your mom, my mom, they were raised by her, so they have a different viewpoint of her that
Exactly.
is completely different from ours, right? But yeah, I really love that you were able to hear this story and really hear her in this part, because it is true. I feel that as family gets older and as we grow older and we have more responsibilities and things that we have to handle, like bills that we have to pay or contributing to XYZ, or making sure that we can, if we decide to have families, or if we do have families, we have to provide for them. It's very easy to brush off those that are older and not pay attention to their stories and kind of sweep it as, oh, there they go, going off again, and it's a little unfortunate. And so I'm really grateful that you were able to hear her out. And I hope that when I go, and I hope that I can go more often too, to be able to share those stories. I know we've talked also about collecting her recipes, because that's also
Oh
such a
yeah.
beautiful way of, you know, rem- remembering her and living, I guess, like making sure she's still alive, kind of like that Mexican tradition of you don't forget your ancestors and you do things to celebrate them. I feel like that would be really great. Um,
And what a wonderful way to just kind of open up this window of gratitude that's so finely knit and tied to your past, essentially, right? Because it is Abue's, but it is Gami's too, right? And it is Pam's too, and it is like your parents' past too. And I think that's such a hard thing to do. There's so many jokes, I feel like, that are on the internet about how hard it is to get your parents to talk about themselves, and to actually get some grasp of, what was their life like. Like they weren't just parents from the day they were born, right? And being able to see a preview of that and really get into such a vulnerable time for her is such a wonderful thing, and also to just kind of open up this window of, I feel like, on that same strand of maybe not feeling protected in your community, it's because those are the people that understand your story, right? They probably lived the same experience, right? And with this opportunity, there might be a window for so many people to see her story, and then so many people to be on her side and maybe even feel a little bit more of an open window, like, oh wow, my story is appreciated and I didn't have to see it so, like, just for me and my own. It's actually a story of so much. It's a reflection of such a repeated history, unfortunately. you
Yeah.
know
And a history that a lot of people don't know about, you know? 'Cause
yeah, a lot of people know about the Holocaust in Europe, right? But there was definitely a Holocaust going on around almost several continents.
yeah.
So it's good to shed light on that and really not only just give a kind of renowned history perspective, but also something that's so vulnerable and intimate, as far as like what you were describing as saying, this isn't about one country versus a girl, right? This is kind of a girl versus herself, and vice versa, the boy's perspective versus himself. So that's really beautiful.
I also love that framework of using the kids because I feel that adults hide behind children and use children. I mean, they weaponize children, right? Like they use them as an excuse to pass certain laws and restrictions, and they blame it on a child's lack of capacity to understand such complex ideas. And your film is showing that these are two young children, right? Like 2 9-year-olds that have been told a specific narrative. And, obviously you're not going to tell us what happens, but the assumption is there's something that changes in them and they're children. And so if they can change, why can't the older people? You can, you just don't want to. So I really love that you're bringing the story in that perspective. I feel it's going to be that much more impactful. Do you have any
Thank you.
comments before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just think that what the entire concept of your project and your film, I think, is incredible because in talking about history and talking about reflection and in talking about expressing gratitude, through all of that, I think storytelling is something that we really appreciate, like just on our podcast in general. And it's that idea of you are reviving a story that would otherwise not be told, as we've said. And it's that lens of the way that you tell the story, so many other people will know it in that way, and then the story may change over time, right? As people like retell the story and find what grabbed them, and that's just what naturally happens when we tell stories. But I think the most important part is that it's being told. And so happy with everything that you're receiving, and I think it's well deserved. And as an artist myself, I'm so excited for your project, and I think it's destined for success because it's a story that needs to be shared.
Yeah. And I was going to say this maybe at the end, but I think I'm just going to bring it now. I want to say I'm really grateful to live through and see some of the experiences of really good friends of mine and having their dreams come into fruition. Like seeing Kat, who worked so hard and studied theater and devoted so much of her time to theater, and finding work in that. Like that feels so good. A friend of mine who's been working for a really long time on her book and finally got it published. My cousin, who's always been studying and like did communications, had no idea what she was going to do, finally found her path, and then found a story that she was so passionate about and was able to create and receive so much of those efforts, like, are being acknowledged and being rewarded, like being, what's the word, I guess I can't think of anything else, but like a passenger on the side of that journey and seeing all of that come to life feels so good. And I feel so grateful to be able to see that come true for you guys, that it makes me a little teary-eyed, but it feels so amazing. Even Tess, having struggled and worked so hard and finally being able to step into a light of, in a position at work that she is in a place where she's surrounded by good people and people that finally acknowledge her work and help her grow. It's just, it's it leaves me speechless. So I'm very grateful for that. I'll leave the floor open if there's anything else you guys want to say that you're grateful for before I move into our last question. But I wanted to say that.
I'm grateful I don't wear mascara anymore.
Yes.
Goddamn, girl.
She can cry whenever she wants.
Word.
I would
No,
just
me.
echo everything that you said and add in that we surround ourselves with like-minded people,
Mhm.
and in the same way that you feel inspired by us, you are such an inspiration too. I mean, look at who's hosting this episode tonight, like bringing such a special topic, not only to you and your family, but recognizing that our stories are so much bigger than ourselves, and that everything that we share on this podcast, which was incited by you, Pam, is in that light, of sharing the things that are closest to our heart because we know that that's what people need to hear.
Thank you. Anything you want to share?
There's a lot of pressure, guys.
It's okay. You have until the end of the
There's
episode.
a lot of pressure. Yeah. I don't have an answer to this yet. We still have lots to talk about. But I definitely love that this is a season. Yes, it's all about turkey. It's a season of turkey. It's a season of lechon. It's a season of ham for some places in the continental U.S. But it is such this holiday of Thanksgiving has reformed so much. I was actually talking about this with Kat a little bit before. This holiday has moved from a history lesson on pilgrims and Indians, right, in grade school, to family and quality time, to now even redefining, right, what family is in some of our cases, but always valuing, right, the effort and the patience and the time to listen and share, receive and give, right, which is what we alluded to a lot in our last episode. This is such, like, I feel like a peak of giving back, to Abue, Cami. I feel like it's such a, she gave you, and this is such a wonderful return of giving back. Which is sharing this incredible story of a little girl, right, personified, but definitely coming from someone of tremendous spirit and incredible and distinguishable wit. So I think it's such a wonderful I think I a lot of words are coming through my mind. Innovation was one of them, and that sounds very technical, but just an ode, right, to what Thanksgiving is really about, right? I do also want to encourage all of us, right, to go back, and even if you're not going to write a movie, definitely sit down and share something to your loved ones, right? Open up your lives to them and really take them back to moments in their own too, right? Get in there, with those random snarky comments about, their past life, and get in there and find out more, because there's so much, right? I did not have the pleasure of getting to know all the details about my Abue. She was also a very conservative woman, Gummy. Very conservative. And she was also very religious. And she was also very like, I didn't exist before I met your grandfather and God. And I'm like, okay. That's one way to exist, I guess. But the few stories that she did share with me a lot were about motherhood, and that's what really mattered to her. And I feel blessed to even have glimpses of that, because I mean, it shows, right? Like, I feel like even with stories about our family and what they're willing to share, we kind of come up in that light too, right? A little bit through osmosis, we find things that we value through what our family are, or where we've come up from has valued as well. So I find myself, also really appreciating the fine minutes, right, of that, and really enjoying it. So I really encourage everybody to try it out. If you haven't already, and if you have, dive right back in. We have a break, spend some time, right?
Yeah.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel so cozy and warm right now. Such a good feeling. Thank you for that, Tess. So I know that we've been kind of talking a lot about the past and looking backwards, but our final question for today and for this episode is, what are you hoping to bring moving forward?
Well, I'm guessing surrounding the film project.
Well, I mean, it could be the film, or it could just be, like how kind of what Tess was saying. A potential moving forward would be, for her case, having those stories, right? Like now acknowledging and continuing to share those stories since you've had this experience and looked backwards and heard her, Abue's story. Is there anything that you're hoping to bring moving forward? And it could be the film, or it could be something else.
Well, on a professional note, I would love for the project to keep moving forward, and because the fund is for the development process, but there's still a lot more to come. So I just manifesting that everything goes smoothly, hopefully, that I hope that a lot of people can see the same value in it as you guys have mentioned. Um, because it is something, I feel like it's a story that, like Tess said before, it's a story that circles, it comes back and then it goes and then comes back. I feel like there's something about it, about human nature. I don't know. But what I do like about the story is that it does speak about our community and Abue, but I feel like it also reflects something about humanity in general, which is this fear of the other, fear of what's different and how to maybe overcome that. And maybe shine a ridiculous light on discrimination against immigrants. There are immigrants everywhere. There are immigrants in Peru as well. And unfortunately, there have been some very unfortunate things happening around that topic. Because there's been a lot of Venezuelans coming to Peru, and there are many, many of them that I've met that are super nice people, very hardworking people. But then there's also, I guess, the rotten apples here and there that have gone to like the bad side, and they rob people and whatnot, and that causes fear in society, which is, I guess, natural. But it's also important to keep in mind that it's not very healthy to generalize. Like, there are rotten apples here and there, but there are also Peruvian rotten apples. There have always been Peruvian rotten apples and American rotten apples and maybe even Japanese rotten apples, So it's not a generalization thing. It's just trying to figure out where the rotten apples are, how to cure them, and whatnot. So yeah, I'm hoping that moving forward that the movie manages to come out and that people can watch it and, I guess, process this message that I'm trying to convey, which is that, the discrimination is sort of ridiculous, and because at the end of the day, we're all human. Everybody poops, everybody drinks
Yes.
tea, and so it's just stupid to generalize, because it really does no bueno. It doesn't
No,
really
It's like
does
you said,
anything good.
life is short. Life
Yeah.
is too short.
Exactly. Life is too short to spend it on stuff like that. So yeah, that's on the professional note. And then on the personal note, I'm hoping I'm hoping that, to be honest, I don't know how long the movie might take to make, but I'm really hoping, because Abue is already 90 years old, and she's very,
Yeah.
very healthy right now. She's always been a very sportsy person and whatnot. She's very active.
Guys, she
But
takes herself to the
Yeah.
casino. Okay.
She does.
And walked
She
herself
calls
home
it
one time.
she calls
She
it the
has a
university.
fortitude. Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
She
She's
says
still
she's going to
learning
class. Yeah.
every day.
Oh, a
Um,
very learned scholar.
Top of her class.
Yeah.
yeah.
She's valedictory.
Um,
Oh,
oh my God.
Put her on the podium.
yeah.
Yeah, but you never know. You never know. 90 years
Yeah.
old is a lot. I
Mhm.
don't know how long it'll take me to film the movie, but I'm manifesting and I'm hoping that I can get it done in time so I can take her to the premiere and be like, "Hey, look at it. I made it. You made it. You're on screen."
Listen,
And
we'll all
I
be
really
there.
hope that I
We'll
hope
all
so.
be there. I'm saying it right now. Us three. That'll be
Manifesting.
hopefully not your guys' first trip to Peru, but we'll be there for the premiere. Hi, Tea Mystique.
Yeah.
And
It's a special one.
yeah, because it's not even just that that she could be there physically, but mentally as well. Thank
Yeah.
God she's super active, and she has her friends. She talks a lot. She keeps herself busy. She cooks every day. So I have high hopes, pero life is very unpredictable. So I'm manifesting, and I'm hoping that I can get it to fruition in time so that she can watch it with me.
If anyone can get it done, it's you. And you guys don't know this, but I'm gonna take this opportunity to brag a little bit about my cousin. I'm sure that this project will go off well and that people will take it and hear it and want to build it with you. Because even as she was presenting this as her thesis in her defense, there were no comments. Okay. Every other defense or whatever, they're like, oh, but did you think about this or what about that? But like hers, it was like, period. That's it. Like, you're good. Let's go. Take my money. Here's your degree.
Next.
So I
That's what they were
have,
waiting for.
yeah, I have all the faith in the world that will happen, and I'm sure Oji-chan somewhere is also going to be there, like, yeah, go Cami, because that's a part of his story too. I'm sure, because it's that whole community that came, and I think it would be a really good reminder, because the immigrant story is such a common story, and it's so sad that it's not not that it's not valued, but that it's so easily forgotten. And it's one of the struggles that I always have when I have arguments or disagreements with my mom, because I acknowledge the sacrifice that takes. And so who am I to complain about something so frivolous when they've busted their ass to make it work for us here, and Abue's family to make it work for all of them over there, and her parents to make sure that the future generations have a future to look forward to. So I am grateful for you. I am grateful for Abue, grateful for all the wonderful ladies here in the room with me, and that we can have this space to share all of these beautiful stories. Grateful none of us are wearing mascara, so it doesn't look like it's running down our faces. But yeah, thank you so much, Cami. It was such a
Thank you,
pleasure to have
guys.
you on our podcast.
I'm grateful too.
Cheers to you.
Yes. Cheers to, what's the name of your movie?
Okaeri.
Okaeri.
Okay.
And you want to say what that means? It's a Japanese word.
Well, Okaeri is, I guess, a sort of like a greeting kind of word. It doesn't really have a direct translation, but you can take it as if someone comes back home and you're receiving that person, it's kind of like saying, "Oh, welcome back home," So it touches on, the idea of home, because the main character, which is inspiring my grandma, there's like a big sense of this question of, is this really my home if they don't really seem to want me here? How can you say to me, "Okaeri nasai," when I come back home, when this is not my home? They don't want me here. So it's like also a reflection on that topic as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Okaeri.
Oh,
Hmm.
awesome.
Thank you. So now we get into the tarot portion of the episode. And today I really looked at all of my tarot decks because this was such a special episode for me. I wanted to see which one really called to me to give any extra messages or special messages. And so the deck that called to me today, I believe I've used this before, but it's the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot deck. It's a beautiful tarot deck that has gilded gold on it. One of my favorite decks to use. And I
It's so
think,
pretty.
yeah, I think I want to ask the cards today. We've talked a lot about looking back, sharing these stories. A call to action from Tess was given to encourage us to have those conversations and listen a little closer. And so I think I want to ask the cards how, what are things we can do to do that? Because I do acknowledge that it can be a little bit difficult for some people, not only to ask, but also to share, right? Because these are stories of their own journey. They can be very personal, and sometimes it is difficult to relive them. And so, what is something that we can do to help give us the strength to do that? And also, gonna ask the cards if they could give us a little hint of anything Cami can do to make sure that she manifests her reality. So, one card came out, but I think I want to pull 3 today. This one wants to come out. All right, here we go. Oh, so beautiful. Okay. Let me go ahead and take the deck card just in case. Okay, so the cards that came out were the Hermit, the 10 of Cups in reverse, and then the Magician. So I don't know if you can see that, Gabby. So the first card is the Hermit, and this one actually came out as I was saying. If there's anything that Gami can do to manifest this, so I'm gonna take it as the card for that. And the Hermit is usually a card that talks about staying inside and indoors, but for that sense of looking inward, right? Like doing the hard work, the deep work. And so I'm going to read what it says in the book just to see if there's anything else that comes up. So the astrological correspondence is Virgo. Virgo is very detail oriented. They like to plan, look ahead. And so it says the Hermit advises you that now is a time for reflection. You must look inward for truth and wisdom, for you have all the knowledge you need inside. Be calm and reflective. Do not let the outside world distract you from the messages you hold within. And some of the keywords here for upright is introspection, enlightenment, solitude, and reflection. So to me, this card really, what I also saw that popped up, there's the Hermit is holding a lantern, and it also kind of looks like the shape of a star. It's not the typical shape of of a wick or a lit candle. It looks like a star, and it has the gilded gold. And so when it came out, that was one of the first things that I noticed, almost like this light that he was following. And so to me, it feels like this card is trying to show that, yes, look inward and spend that time, but I feel like you are doing that, like make sure you're not getting distracted. But it's almost a sense of, if you ever feel any doubt in yourself, because that always happens with us, right? Like with artists and with things that you're always passionate about, like maybe things start to go well and things all of a sudden there's a setback, and then you start having self-doubt, or you're not sure, or very famous imposter syndrome might creep up behind you. And I feel like it's trying to almost advise that when those moments do come and that darkness starts to settle in, when you do kind of get, alone, and those moments start to come in, and reflection can be good, but it can also be overwhelming, right? We can get lost in our thoughts. Our thoughts can be very loud and drowning. And so It's almost like remember your why, remember that guiding light, like that North Star. Like, why is it that you're doing this project? Why is it so important? And continue to use that to fuel you to keep going no matter what comes around. Because once the Hermit comes out, it's nothing but, there's nowhere to go but up. And I think that's also being reinforced with the Magician that came up here at the end. But for the middle card, we have the 10 of Cups in reverse. And so 10 of Cups is usually indicative of something that you are fulfilling, right? It's the traditional Rider Waite. It shows I think it's a man that's sitting on a throne, and he has all the cups behind him. And with this deck, it looks more like it's a family. It's a woman and a man. They have a baby. They are laying on a tree, and there are 10 cups around them, but it's in reverse. And so the 10 of Cups in reverse means broken relationship, neglect, incompletion, misalignment, right? And I know those sound like really harsh words, excuse me, but if we're keeping in mind to what I'm asking, how can we, like, what are things we need to think about when we want to try to look back or share those stories or try to continue, you know, those hard storytelling moments. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to feel a little bit difficult. There might be relationships there that are teetering and you're afraid of breaking them, but it's coming from that idea that it hasn't been talked about, right? Like, this is like this because it's neglected. This is like this because there's a broken relationship, because something's not done, right? The cycle is not complete. And it's still the 10 of Cups. It's just in reverse. It doesn't mean we can't flip the card over. It could have been a different card that came out. And so for me, the cards are trying to say almost like a sign of hope for those of you who are hearing our podcast and have this inkling, this little feeling in your gut of you kind of want to, but you're scared or you're worried of the results. I think that these cards are very encouraging. Like, maybe it takes some time, maybe look inside and think about, if you're hesitant to share the story, why are you hesitant to share the story? If you're hesitant to ask, why are you hesitant to ask? But remembering that the important reason why, right? You want to do this to be able to make those connections, to be able to mend something. And just because this is the current state of it now doesn't mean that it can't be fixed. And it's still the 10 of Cups. So once you do that, I feel like it's this idea that nothing but good will happen. All those things that you've wanted will come into fruition because it is that 10 of Cups. Like, all the cups are here. All the misalignment that was happening, things will, it'll take time to get there, but it'll get there, And then the last card that we have that is the reason why I feel it's such a hopeful and reassuring of even though it's hard, it'll be worth the results, is because we have the Magician. And the Magician this is what it looks like. So the Magician, the astrological correspondence is Mercury. And the description here says the magician connects the spirit to the physical. He represents as above, so below. He is the master of all four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. He is telling you that you hold all the tools to manifest your desires into reality. Creativity, skill, focus, and desire are the forces he reveals to you in order to accomplish any goal. And in upright, it symbolizes skill, confidence, action, concentration, and accomplishment. So it's reaffirming to us. You might think that you have to, go out and maybe ask somebody else, or you'll need, I don't know, some self-help book or whatever it may be. But everything that you already have inside of you. It may take some time. You might have to spend some time with yourself, figure out where it is, where it lies, but you have it. And once you acknowledge that, once you acknowledge the power that you have to mend those relationships, to take that first step forward and ask somebody, or to share that story that you've been wanting to share, everything will fall into place and you'll come into this feeling of, wow, I did this. You know, like my dream that has always been somewhere at the back of my head or I thought was so unattainable is finally happening. And we've said one word tonight a lot, which was the word manifest, right? And that's the whole concept. It's yes, dream, but dream and do the work. You know, just don't just dream and say nothing or complain. Dream about it. Dreaming is good. Dreaming is what keeps you going. It's what gives you that hope. It what fuels you. It's what ignites that passion. But do it while also doing the work, because that's what the Hermit card represents. And do it without losing yourself, without remembering why you want that dream in the first place. So that's what the cards have to say for us today. I'm going to keep it really short because I tend to repeat myself a lot in these tarot reads. But yeah, I think these are good signs. And I also feel it's a good sign because of everything that I've been saying, right? Like I've been noticing that all of my friends who have gone through this manifestation process, they are coming true. And so that is proof. The proof is in the pudding. And so I have all the faith in the world that it's going to happen to you and that we will be able to stand there and you'll be able to introduce Abue at the beginning and at the end of that premiere, and she's going to feel so good about herself. And the rest of the family might be like, oh my God, there goes her her head's going to blow up again. But it will be good and it'll be fine and it'll be such a great time. And I know that it'll ignite conversation, not just amongst our family, but amongst the entire Nikkei community in Peru, for the better, you know? So I thank you for being on our podcast today. And I did want to do a quick shout out. Another thing you didn't know, because I have a very talented cousin, is that she has a band called Annie the Band. Yeah, her music is amazing. It's a 2-person band, right? I know you have like your third, but it's
I guess
really
we could be
two of you,
like
right?
2.5.
2.5. And you know, metric system, when she posted that something about her band, I was a little confused because I thought she was referring to something she had released in August, but no, it's just I'm American and I don't know how to read the dates anywhere else outside of America.
It's
The
it's
8th
date
of
first and then month.
day, month,
Yeah.
not month and
Exactly,
day. So I
yeah.
was like, August 12th.
That's hilarious.
What? No, December 8th is when they're going to be
Yes.
releasing, I'm assuming, a new single.
Actually, the entire album.
The entire album. Oh my God. Work. A new album. So I will link I will link to her band's Instagram accounts and their Spotify so you guys can go and follow them and listen to them. I love their music. I love your voice. You're an amazing singer. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Tess, I'm gonna go back to you actually before we end it. Did you think of what you wanted to be grateful for?
Oh wow.
Got him.
So there was a thought actually, which I'll grab onto because here we are. I'm extremely grateful for which I've mentioned before, writing. My mother kept a journal and she wrote very small entries of us being me and my brother as young as like children, like 2 years old to children's school age. And it was such a a beautiful moment because she's my late mother, right? She died when I was very young, so there is no opportunity, right, for exchange and for kind of diving into these topics personally with her. I'm also grateful that I've been able to have family to kind of do that for her, but I was able to get a direct piece of her through her writing. And she was a little storyteller. She wrote funny little snippets of things like, today Tessie, which is me because that was my family nickname, Tessie and I had an argument because she called herself a princess and she didn't want to go to school, and I told her that if she was a princess then that makes me a queen, so she has to go to school. And I was like, I don't even remember that happening. So so now I get a little glimpse of me too, right? Get a little glimpse of me and the child, version of me.
Your
that
royalty, don't forget that.
Oh yeah, well, maybe not because I did have to go to school. So
Hey,
Uh,
princesses and princes still have tutors.
Yeah.
they still go to school, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So very very on brand of family. I'm also very grateful that I have chosen family, and they have chosen me too. So, a lot of them are listening to this episode. I know it because they've been telling me that they listen to every episode. So I'm so glad that they chose me too, and I hope they're hearing this. So yeah,
They are. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you, Cami, for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
No
you
problem.
will be
grateful.
invited back. You will
Yes.
be
I'm
invited
grateful because I listen to every episode. So
back.
oh,
We're
Yeah, you're
grateful for
definitely
that.
coming back, just so you know. Gun against your head. I'm gonna be like,
MVP.
come back.
Not a gun. Not a gun. I love flour.
A
Love-
cup of tea next to your head.
Love gun?
Love tea.
Love gun.
All right. Well,
We also have a special announcement.
Oh yes, we do.
We do. I have it. I
We
have
do,
it.
Yes,
she
I
has
have it.
we promised this last time.
We did. We want to
So-
follow through.
I'm gonna go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, guys, because I don't remember.
So, our special announcement for you all is thank you so much for being with us since the beginning of our podcast, launched back in May. We have worked so hard because of you guys to release an episode every 2 weeks. It's been so important to us to do that. And so, with that being said, we have arrived to the finale of our very first season. It's not today. But we have 2 episodes remaining until the end of our season. So we want you who are listening to us today, and Cami, you get to be the first to know that our season will conclude at the end of 2023. So that being said, stay tuned because our final 2 episodes are going to be a riot. We're going to have a lot of fun with these next 2. And I'm not saying that one of them might be themed in a specific way.
I feel like you'd kill us if we didn't.
I might. My mom would too.
You would petition, be like,
Yeah. So stay tuned, y'all, because we got some fun stuff coming your way.
ooh, how exciting.
Christmas present, T-shirt maybe,
I know she's been
Ooh,
waiting
merch.
for a high Tea Mystique merch. Listen,
Funny that
we
you
are
said
or maybe
manifesting that.
cups of tea.
Oh, that's
We
so
are
cute.
manifesting that. Just give us some
Manifesting merch.
time. We're working on it.
Okay,
Give us
Manifest.
your wish list. We got you.
serving one right now. I want my cup of tea.
Love
All
it.
right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to us tonight, for taking the time out of your morning, afternoon, evening. We hope you really enjoyed this one. And thank you, Cami, for being with us virtually and taking some time out of your very busy day. We can't wait to hear more updates. So yeah, see you in the next episode, everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.